Hello everyone and welcome back to the Educate Colon Snap channel. How you doing? So today we're going to be going over the Series 4, Series 5 tier list, I guess token buy list. We've done one for the Series 3 cards, but we haven't done one for 4 and 5. I wanted to do that here today. And let's begin. So hopefully you've read the title of the last video where I talk about Series 3.5 cards, because this is why I made that video, just to kind of address it, because I just think it's weird that I can't really recommend anything else besides the 3.5s, the big bads. When it comes to spending your tokens, it just doesn't make sense to spend on things that are going to eventually become free, eventually come very cheap comparative to these 3 or likely 4 cards that are going to be 6,000 tokens in perpetuity. So basically, if you don't have these cards, try to focus on these cards. At least from an optimization standpoint, that is the way. If you don't like these cards, right? So some people just don't want to play Thanos. They just don't want to play Galactus. They don't want to play Kang. They don't want to play the new Hive Evolutionary. If that's the case, then sure, you can ignore these cards. But I think for people that are just trying to optimize, get the best bang for their buck, these 3, these 4 are going to be the ones you want to be spending first, because they're always going to be this price point. So problem is, that's 3-4 months of token spending right there, right? So that's the issue. Now I have this in order. So my best buy would be Thanos, right? I have made a video versus Thanos, Galactus, or Kang. I've made that video if you want to take a look at it in the channel. But I think Thanos is still the best buy. Galactus number 2, Kang number 3. I actually think Kang is better if you have more options, essentially. So if you have more options, then Kang is better. Kang isn't a deck in itself, but it can be put into a lot of decks. So if you have the ability to make a lot of decks, then Kang can slot into a lot of those. So that's why I would say it's still on the list. If you have a large pool of cards, then yeah, Kang makes sense. But if you don't, then try to get a win con first, right? You can put Kang in Galactus, you can put Kang in Thanos decks. So it just kind of flows off of each other. So, and then High Evolutionary is not out yet, but it's something that a lot of people even now are saving up for. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that there's a possibility this will be a big bad, a Series 3.5, something that you have to spend 6,000 tokens on. So if you want to get that as soon as it drops, well, then save up for that. So I just want to put that in there. It's likely coming out in May. So not next month, but the month after. So something to focus on. Now, next up, we have Shuri. So Shuri, obviously, very strong card, breaks the meta right now, really, really good. Now, the problem I have with Shuri is that it's moving down next month. So next month, probably in 3 weeks, it's going to drop down to Series 3. And if you've already completed Series 3, you can get this instantly. So if you want to wait those 3 weeks, well, then you don't have to spend for Shuri at all. Now, the problem is if you're Series 3 incomplete and you're still missing 40 cards, something like that, a huge number of Series 3 cards, once this drops down to Series 3, it's going to be very hard to get this card, because now it's in this large pool of Series 3 cards, and you can only get 1 per month that you can choose from. So unless you want to use that 1 per month on Shuri, it might actually be better if you are not close to completing Series 3 to actually spend your 4,000 or your 3,000 tokens on a Shuri. Now, it might feel weird, but Shuri is strong, and while it might get nerfed, I don't think it's going to be nerfed in a way that's unplayable. So if you don't get Shuri during this window where it's still in pool 4, and it drops down to pool 3 and you can't easily access it anymore, well, then you might be regretting, not spending that 3,000 tokens to get it. So I actually think this is something you have to think about. If you're very close to Series 3 completion, or you are Series 3 completion and you can wait the 3 weeks, then feel free to just let it drop down to Series 3. But if you're not close to Series 3, might want to pick it up. Now, next two cards I think are actually strong, could be worth getting now. So those would be Darkhawk and Kitty Pryde. I actually just think Darkhawk is just a solid card. It just works in a lot of compositions. The one caveat for Darkhawk is you kind of need Zabu. In a lot of Darkhawk decks have Zabu in it. So if you don't have Zabu, then I would say don't really like go for Darkhawk. It's hard to make a good Darkhawk deck without Zabu. So that's my one caveat. But if you have Zabu, sure, you can grab Darkhawk. That's my thoughts there. Now, Kitty Pryde, it's a new card, came out very recently. It had a bug. It's gotten removed. It likely could be back by the time you see this. But for now, I actually like the initial testing. This does seem like a pretty good card. You do have to build around it. That's like the one caveat. It's not like Sunspot where you can just put Sunspot on everything and like it's like, oh yeah, here's a free card to put in every single deck. You do have to build around it, but I do think it can be a very powerful card. And with Hitmonkey coming out in the next season pass, definitely think this is a card that can synergize pretty well with it for these huge turn 6 plays. So definitely think it might be worth. So obviously I'm not recommending this until you have pretty much all the Series 3.5 cards. But if you do have those, well then, and you want to play with something, you have extra tokens left over, I think this is something very possible to use it on. Now, the next group is cards that are moving to Series 3. Now, let me tell you, if this card was not moving to Series 3, I'd move it here, right? I just straight up. But since it's moving to Series 3, it's hard to not have it in that, oh, if you wait 3 weeks, it'll be free, essentially. So that's kind of the issue there. If you just want to wait 3 weeks, you can get 5 cards, essentially. So it's hard to really recommend them. But this is like the ordered list, right? I think Sauron and Super Scroll are actually a little bit better than the other 3. Even though Valkyrie and Basque, I think, is definitely the more popular of the 5 here. I think Super Scroll as a countermeasure for ongoing deck can be really impactful, so it actually has a place in the meta if you're fighting a lot of that. And Sauron just kind of is a strong card. It's always been a strong card, and it just like it's just there. It's just strong. The only limiting factor is there's not a lot of decks you can really work into a Sauron with, right? It's very one-dimensional, but it's like Shuri, right? The decks it does work and it works well. And then Valkyrie, Basque are just fun cards. I think these are definitely the funnest of the 5, where you can open up Cerebro, and then Valkyrie has really good tech options to counter some meta game cards. And Black Panther is just a decent card. Works well with Shuri into Arlen Zola, but like you don't need to do this. Like you don't need a Black Panther, I would say, in your collection to really have a full option of deck building strategies. So it's there, but definitely last on that list. Now, next one, these cards are playable but expensive. Now, I don't think they're particularly bad, but I just think they're too expensive to really justify the tokens for now. Now, if the cards get cheaper, obviously, I think they might be worth it. But for now, I think it's hard to really justify really picking up these cards. Zabu really works well with Mr. Negative and Darkhawk, but you know, you don't need it. Well, you do need it for Darkhawk, but you don't really need it for a lot of other compositions. Modork is strong, but you don't really see a lot of discard 2 options. Honestly, the meta mode discard deck is like Hella, I would say, like Hyrule Casino Hella. And you don't even need to run Modork in there, so kind of weird. Negasun is a cool tech card, but if people aren't running like that Shuri list, then it doesn't matter. And then like you doing Nimrod stuff is also kind of lost. I don't love it. Stature's okay, but Stature kind of limits your deck building. You have to be running like either Moon Knight or Black Bolt, and it's just limiting. Those cards aren't played generally. So you're like playing like subpar cards because you want to play the Saturin, which is like not a great way of designing cards, but it is a decent card if you can. And it also, like, if there is a discard meta, it's a really good counter. So some strategies for that. And then Silver Surfer is decent, but like slightly like underpowered. I don't know. If it somehow had like a little bit more power, like 1 more power, 2 more power somewhere, I definitely think this is like super strong. Or not super strong, but like very competitive. But it's like slightly underpowered is my feeling here. So I would say it's an expensive card. Like once it drops down to Series 3, this card's gonna be very, very solid because it's very cheap to get. But right now, I think it's a little bit expensive. And then the next ones I have not really worth. I have Null in there. I think that's when everyone's gonna be like, Null is worth. I play Null, but I think a lot of times you're playing Galactus when you're playing Null, and if you can get the Galactus off in a good setup, you've already won. And most people are not going to let you play Galactus and then play Null the turn after and not leave and think they're gonna win. Like, that's crazy. So like by the time you've played the Galactus, the Null is like very not important, very secondary. So it's just not that important in the composition because you can basically just like bluff the win at that point. So I don't think it's a super important card. And then Master Mode, you know, Ronin tech, sure. Darkhawk tech, sure. But like, who's playing Ronin really? Like, it's not a meta decomposition, honestly. You just play Dino. And Darkhawk doesn't need Master Mode. Like, it already has things to do on turn 2. You don't need the mode, so, and it doesn't guarantee that you're going to mess them up at all either. So I'm not sold on the molds. I don't really see it doing that much a lot of the time. So I just think like maybe we wait till it's 3,000 tokens and then see again. But right now it's just not worth it. And then the last group is just avoid. I just think these cards are not good, like actively bad almost. So I just would not recommend these at all. So Sentry is just really hard to play. It used to have a function when Zabu was broken, but now that it's not broken, it's just hard to make it work. Ghost does nothing. That's that's the issue, unfortunately, because a lot of decks don't care whether they go first or second. Especially with Arrow Nerf, it just doesn't matter. So it's just like not doing anything for you. You'd rather have a better 1-drop. So I don't recommend it anymore. Shana is just actively bad, and now it can pull Kitty, so it can give you a 0 power card. So that turn 6 bomb, which, you know, bomb is in quotation marks, is just not as much anymore. So it just doesn't do anything. Dazzler, the payoff is not good enough. 4 mana 10 is like okay, but like it's so much effort to set it up, right? Like you basically need Ultron or Thanos, and even Thanos now is a lot harder because of the Quinjet nerf. So even that is hard to do. So the setup is just not there. It's just very hard to really have this active. So definitely don't recommend it. And then Shadow King, I just think is a really bad card. I feel mean. But I just don't think this card is good. I'm sorry. Like, it just doesn't do that much. Now, I might be underrating Shadow King. I will say that I might be underrating Shadow King. I will throw it in there. But I also say I am okay having biases. And I'm fine to say, yeah, I am biased against Shadow King. My experience with this card has not been good, and anytime I've seen it in the game, it's not been good. I just think it needs to do a little bit more for it to be a very strong card. And obviously there might be some metas where as more cards are added into the game, this might jump up in priority, but right now in this meta, I just don't see it. By the time this is relevant, it's probably going to be cheaper. So I just would not like spend any resources on it at all. So overall, that's my thoughts on the Series 4, Series 5 meta at the moment. Focus on the Series 3.5s. Then if you want to get Kitty or Darkhawk, sure. If you want to get the cards that are moving down to Series 3, Sure. Why do I have 6 cards that are moving down? One of these is wrong, by the way. I'm sure chat is like, one of these is wrong. Da 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 da. One of these is wrong. So Valkyrie, Super Scroll, Shuri, Bass, Black Panther. Sauron is not moving down. Ah. That's right. Okay. So this should be here then. Okay. Sauron is not moving down. Well, I'm glad I caught that. Obviously, I know I'm going to get chat talking to me about it, but hey, I caught it. Anyways, but yeah, I do think Sauron is strong. I actually think Sauron is in here, so that it fits perfectly because I said that it would be here if it wasn't moving down, which is weird because it is not moving down. So kind of weird for me. But overall, that's my thoughts on the patch here. I'll have a link to the image file if you just want to look at the image. But these are my thoughts on the Series 3, Series 4, Series 3.5 cards right now, and just my thoughts on how you should approach getting the ones that you want. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. Take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Once you watch him, you won't go back. Guilty should a marvel snap.